Penn State men's basketball has the look of an NCAA tournament team, but they're not exactly playing like one recently.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host of the show. And it's been a while since we've talked a little bit of men's basketball in depth. That is Zane Brancefield, associate producer to the show, but our men's basketball insider for the Nittany Lions here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Penn State men's basketball picked up a win against Northwestern, but in the process lost to Rutgers, lost to Indiana. So they've lost a couple conference games here, and then they got a tough one against Illinois. So we're going to talk about all of it here. The big takeaway, or I guess the big debate is, look, going into the season, I had the confidence. I still have the confidence that this team makes the NCAA tournament, but they are struggling a little bit at this point. They should have won that game against Rutgers. A game against Indiana in the Palestra. So this is a neutral site game, Zane. And Indiana is without its best player, and they lose that game too decisively. And I know they beat Northwestern at home, but that took a lot of free throws for them to do that. So I feel like there was an element of luck here. Zane, I think this is just a cold streak. You were live at the games yourself. What are you seeing out there on the floor?
I guess you could call it a cold streak, but really Penn State has just not been taking care of the ball. And that's like the biggest thing. They have been turning over the ball a lot.
With Ace Baldwin.
Well, and just the other day, I think it was 8 turnovers that Ace had alone, which that's tough when your star point guard is giving up that many turnovers. Mike Rhoades said he was concerned about it. He was going to use it as a learning point, but the reality is you cannot turn the ball over as a team like 16 times to a Northwestern team that isn't a bad team. Like, they're okay. And Penn State just needs to kind of find their groove, and you really just can't turn the ball over that many times, because the more times you turn the ball over, the more shots the other team gets. And sure, they got bailed out by free throws. 45 free throws is a lot of free throws for any team at any level. And that's where like most of Ace Baldwin's points came from. He had like 17 on the night and was 1 for 7 from the field. The rest were all free throws. And that's not a great shooting night. You can't you can't rely on free throws to win you the game, because you're not always going to get the call. I understand a lot of them were them driving to the basket and just getting hacked, and that takes away a field goal and it just lets you shoot free throws. But at the end of the day, you have to make your shots, and you have to be able to shoot from all areas of the field. And that's the other weakest point right now with this Penn State team, is they're not making 3-pointers. The only guy really you can rely on right now to hit the 3 ball is Zach Hicks, who we mentioned is shooting like 43%, which is incredible.
Yeah. But
nobody else on the team is even close to that number. You can say Freddie DeLeon is a good shooter. Ace Baldwin Jr. is a good shooter. But if they're not making them in the game, they're not making them consistently, it doesn't matter what you're doing outside of that. And Penn State just really needs to execute in the games. Like, I agree, Penn State is a March Madness caliber team. I said at the beginning of the year, I'm going to stick by it, because there's a lot of season left. And it doesn't matter if you start hot, if you end hot, you just need to play strong throughout the whole year. And Penn State can do that. And right now, I think this is a good learning opportunity for them, is to figure out somehow they won against Northwestern despite shooting poorly. They lost Indiana, as you mentioned, without their star player, Malik Renew. And now they're going into a stretch here against Illinois, Oregon, and Michigan State, all 3 of which are ranked teams. And by no means is that an easy stretch. And so Penn State's going to need to take care of the ball. They need to shoot high percentage shots, because half the time, if you watch the game, it seems like they're shooting shots that aren't highly contested. I understand they make a lot of layups. They shoot a lot in the paint. But outside of easy layups and dunks that they're getting between Yannick Cody Niederhauser and Nick Kern Jr., sometimes they're shooting these shots that you're like, most NBA players are not going to make that. And that could be frustrating as a fan. That could be frustrating as a coach. I'm sure Mike Rhoades has some confidence in his guys to make some of those shots. But if you're shooting 2-3 of those a game, that's not really the best chance. And to beat a team like Illinois here coming up, Oregon, Michigan State, all those teams, you need to have limited turnovers. You need to rebound the ball, and you need to shoot high percentage shots. Those are your three biggest keys to winning any basketball game at any level.
Yeah.
And if Penn State wants to do that, that's what they need to do, because they're not an incredible rebounding team. They make up with that in their turnover margins. They don't shoot the three ball well. They score a ton of points at the free throw line and in the paint. And Penn State's, like, they're bigger than what they were in past seasons, but they're not the biggest team overall. They run a lot of small ball where at times if people are in foul trouble, Puff Johnson could play the center position. Obviously right now, Kachi Enza is sick right now is what we've been told. And so he should be back, I would hope, within the next day or so. But Miles Goodman is back now too. So Penn State is getting some of their height and the healthy aspects of that back in their team. So they can make moves. They, like I said, they weren't healthy. Miles Goodman wasn't playing. And they've had a couple other sicknesses and banged up injuries on and off throughout the season for maybe part of games. But they can go far. Don't discount Penn State because they lost to Indiana and they lost to Rutgers. They can still make noise. It's just a matter of, can they execute in the game? And like I said, I think a loss to Indiana is good because you can learn from those moments. And Mike Rhoades is a very good coach. And I think people need to get on board with him and trust that he'll make the right decisions going forward, not necessarily for this upcoming game, but for the season as a long run.
And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to make sense of this stretch. It's not concerning. It is puzzling, right? Because I feel like Penn State should defeat Rutgers, should be able to win by a larger margin against Northwestern, and shouldn't rely on nearly 50 free throw attempts to do that. It is tough to win in Big Ten football, Big Ten basketball as well. And then they lose a game where it's the Palestra. This is a big deal. This is why Penn State schedules it. And then Indiana comes to town without its best player and wins that game. And then the stretch doesn't get any easier. But why they are struggling in these games is because Ace Baldwin Jr. is not playing his best basketball. He'll tell you that. I'm pretty sure Coach Rhoades will admit that as well. He is better than what he is playing, and turning the ball over is very, at least at this rate, is uncharacteristic of him and is uncharacteristic of Penn State. Number two, the competition is tough. Look, Rutgers is a good team. Those are two potentially, conservatively, top 10 players that they have as a dynamic duo in next year's NBA draft. The teams that they are facing are tough. Northwestern just beat Illinois. Indiana is a 3-1 team in conference already and is probably very close to being ranked within the top 25. These are good teams, and they're only going to get better. We're going to talk about Illinois in just a moment. Illinois is a juggernaut. And then Penn State is getting ready to face other challenging teams very consecutively here. Oregon, who they are not familiar with. Michigan State. Eventually Iowa, a ranked Michigan team. Rutgers, again, not necessarily in that order, but those are the next 5-6 games for the Nittany Lions. So going back to some of our previous conversations, Zane, we talked about this stretch, how they needed to win some of these games because if they go 500 through this stretch, that is going to be such a plus for them, as opposed to, the worst result here, finishing with maybe a win or hopefully not less than that over this stretch. But they're going to face a group of ranked teams here, teams that they're not familiar with. Let's talk about that Illinois team. This is an Illinois team that is built with a variety of different players. We're talking about foreign-born players. We're talking about guys through the transfer portal, guys that have been household names at Illinois. Brad Underwood has constructed a really good group for this season. This is a team that will be in the tournament, will contend for the Big Ten title, and we'll tell you if Penn State even has a chance. I know we're saying that now, but they're going cold into this one. We'll talk about it next on the other side of this break. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before, and Gametime can help you do just that. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for these kind of events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on incredible seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. And if you look over at Gametime, you can see tickets for the Orange Bowl, the college football playoff semifinal, Penn State versus Notre Dame. I have them pulled up in front of me. You can go to the Gametime app or go to gametime.co, and those Gametime picks are already listed. There's a super deal right now. Club section, 206, row 3, all in pricing. Remember, this is a bowl game, but you get the best deals on Gametime. $465, all in pricing. No surprise fees at checkout. If you're looking for the lowest price on tickets, and that's for 2 tickets each ticket. If you're looking for the lowest price on tickets, Gametime has that too. This is upper corner, section 36 PT, standing room only, all in pricing. $255 per ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Illinois presents a formidable challenge here, Zane. And looking at this one, I don't know that I like Penn State's chances. This is at Illinois. Illinois is coming off of a hot streak here where they were very close to knocking off the number 1 team. Now, close only counts in horseshoes, but it shows what the Fighting Illini are capable of. Number 1 Tennessee. This went down to the wire. It was 66-64, and then they recovered with a 4-game win streak. But most telling, they went on the road to Oregon. Penn State's getting ready to host Oregon. They flew out to Oregon and beat that Ducks team, which is top 10 presently, 109-77. That's a 30-plus point win against a top 10 team that you are not familiar with on their basketball court. So does Penn State have a chance here, Zane? The spread is not going to be out at the time of this conversation, but I got to imagine Penn State might be a double-digit underdog here.
Yeah, I would genuinely be surprised if Penn State didn't lose by 10 points or more. And that's not because they're bad. That's because
we just get done saying that they're a tournament team. These are the games that they need to win or at least be competitive in. Can they shake off some of this rust? Illinois is a balanced team. Penn State is a balanced team, so it's strength on strength. And I like Illinois' strength at this present more than I do Penn State's strength. So the two cancel each other out. But Illinois does a better job at being a balanced attack, balanced defensively, right? Penn State doesn't have this advantage over them like a Yannick Conan-Niederhauser. Illinois has big guys too. Ace Baldwin plays really good defense. Well, Illinois has guards that protect the basketball. So, right, it's a strength on a strength. And I just think Illinois has enough. And if this was in the Bryce Jordan Center, maybe a little different. I'd probably have a different level of confidence here. But Illinois is red hot and Penn State is ice cold.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing here that gives Illinois the edge is their rebounding margins. They rebound the ball like 45 times a game compared to Penn State's 36.5, which those are not great margins to have if Penn State's looking to win. Now, it's not to say that Penn State can't win. Like I said, I think they're a tournament team, but if we're talking regular season game, it's not a neutral site. It's not like they're in the tournament. It's not at Happy Valley. They're out in Illinois. Illinois is like a phenomenal basketball program. They've been good for years. They have people that show up and cheer, and people are going to be loud, and they're going to have an environment that Penn State's not going to really have been used to so far this season. And with a team as talented and as deep, as you mentioned, as Illinois, it makes it difficult for Penn State because while I enjoy watching Penn State's bench and I like seeing the guys like Nick Kern Jr., DeMarco Dunn, Kachienza, now Miles Goodman back, you can't really match that up to an Illinois team that has so much depth that Kerry Booth, who Penn State had committed to Penn State once upon a time, isn't even playing all that much this year. And it's not that he's a bad player. It's
familiar
that's
face.
How much.
Yeah, he's on Illinois now.
Yeah, he is. They just have a lot of depth there at the Fighting Illini. And also, Brad Underwood is just an incredible coach. So, not that I discount Mike Rhoades. Like I said, I think Mike Rhoades is a good coach. But this game will come down to coaching. It'll come down to execution. And really, who wants it more? Penn State is now playing off of the loss against Indiana. So, they're going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They want to get back in the win column. And as you mentioned, they need to win these tough Big Ten games. So, whether they win against Illinois, Oregon, Michigan State, and so forth, how close they keep those games, because margins matter in college sports, and what they do to get those wins or close losses will be what determine if they're March Madness team. They don't, like you said, they don't need to win all of them. They need to just play their best, and they need to win a few of them.
Go 500. I think if they go 500 in Big Ten play, but I mean, let's focus on this Illinois game short term. They can beat Illinois. So I'm glad you brought, I'm not trying to imply that they don't have a chance, Zane, and neither are you. But do I like their chances as much as I should? I don't in this instance. I think that Illinois does a lot of things well. They rebound well. They shoot well. They can get 3-point production from anybody. The two key players that anybody should circle on is Lithuania native Kasparas Jakučionis and his teammate, who, I mean, this guy can do everything. He shoots the ball well. He's the leading scorer. He's one of the leading rebounders, and he's their leading passer. He leads the team in assists, and he's shooting 49% from the field. So rarely, I mean, he misses half the time, right? He is efficient, and he is a true freshman. And then Tomislav Ivicic, another foreign-born player from Croatia, 7'1", and that's why I say, okay, Yannick Konen-Niederhauser is going to be neutralized because Penn State now doesn't have that advantage of you can see the Big Ten is clearly adapted. Zach Edey moves on, and now the entirety of the Big Ten has their own version or a different version of Zach Edey to this point. The Big Ten grew up because they saw how Purdue was able to have success over the past 3-4 years, and it was behind a Zach Edey, and now you're seeing them, I don't want to necessarily say struggle, but they're definitely a lot more vulnerable than they were in the past. But Illinois is a deep team. They can turn to a lot of different players, right? Most teams, 7, 8, 9 different players can go in at any time for the Fighting Illini. Same thing for Penn State. Now let's finish up with this. If Penn State were to win, they need to key in on forcing more turnovers, not turn the basketball over. And if you can get some better 3-point production, Zach Hicks can't be your only guy, because then the defenses are going to just cover him. They're going to try to double him, or they know when the ball goes to him, that's when they crash, right? Ace Baldwin, Puff Johnson, Nick Kern Jr., Freddie DeLeon, somebody be a secondary option as a shooter. Maybe you look at Javin Carter or Dominic Stewart as just a specialist that comes off the bench. Fill that Jameel Brown role. I don't know, something, Zane, maybe you have a better formula than I do, but I really think the difference is Penn State is doing a lot of things well, aside from, playing some clean basketball here. Don't turn the basketball over, make some more 3-point shots, and this team will start to garner the respect that they deserve once again.
Yeah, I agree with all your points. I would add, I definitely have thought that maybe they should run Javin Carter, considering Mike Rhoades says he's one of the best shooters on the team. Maybe play him 5 extra minutes a game and see if he can get some open 3-point looks.
Why not?
Another thing is, I know Ace Baldwin Jr. loves to pass the ball, but he needs to look to score more often because sure, he can score 16, 17 points a game, but I think it could benefit Penn State if instead of getting 17 and 5 assists or 7, 8 assists, if he goes and gets you 20 some points a game and only gets you 3 or 4 assists, because it's not that Penn State doesn't pass the ball around. If you watch, they do pass the ball around. It's just a matter of who touches it last before somebody scores. And I don't think that needs to be Ace. I know he likes to share the wealth, but Penn State needs him to start playing better basketball. And if he's going to be a leader, I understand that's not always scoring, but I think in this case that it is. And if he plays well, Penn State shoots well, and Yannick Konen-Niederhauser can have a big game, and maybe Miles Goodman too here in this game against Illinois, I think those are Penn State's biggest keys to win. And they can beat the Illini. How realistic and what are the chances of that happening? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
He is Zane Brancefield, associate producer, Penn State men's basketball insider for the show. Zane, thanks so much. Links to his work will be down in the description. I encourage you to go check them out. Zane, thanks for the time. Thanks for an update here on Penn State men's basketball. Great conversation. Like I said, I do believe this is a tournament team, but they got to continue to back it up. A win against Northwestern is good. Took a little bit of luck, but now they need to capitalize on some of these other games. It would be a real statement to see if they defeat Illinois, but time will tell. Again, thanks for the time, Zane. Appreciate it.
Thank you.